Okay, again, let me kick this off. My name is Steve Spiro. I'm the chairman of the Global Wellness Institutes. Can you tell that you have people? Yes. Okay. Anyway, I'm the chairman of the Global Wellness Institute's Halotherapy initiative. It's a fantastic organization. And if you go to globalwellnessinstitute.org, there's about 25 to 30 different initiatives about wellness that has all kinds of research and media. It's really like the prestigious organization that you should take a look at. A lot of great free content. I've been chairman of the Halotherapy initiative for the last 3 years. We have a bunch of research and content on there as well. I decided to have these kind of fireside chats. This is the first one, so thank you. And it's going to be twice a month on the 15th and 30th of each month, approximately. Today's September 15th, and today is the first day of Asthma Peak Week. And that's why we're focusing on asthma today with Kathleen Sloninger. We're doing it as a fireside chat to keep things as casual as possible, because we want to present for about 25, 30 minutes, but leave plenty of time for you to ask as many questions as you want. Please just enter your question in the chat, and we'll answer the chat at the end. And we're ready to go. A lot of people have been asking about more education and how to get more people into their facility. So Kathleen today is going to talk about, what is asthma, how halotherapy helps asthma, and how to drive people with asthma to your spa or wellness center. Kathleen is the executive director of the Michigan chapter of the Asthma and Allergy Association, and is a fantastic speaker and a phenomenally wealth of knowledge. So we're very excited to have her here presenting to our group. So Kathleen, please start.
Oh, thank you, Steve. I'm really excited to be doing a fireside chat with you, but I'm really honored that I'm the first speaker. So hopefully this will go smoothly and be exciting and interesting for people. So these are just some of my affiliations. I have affiliations in the allopathic world as well as the complementary medicine or holistic world. And I really enjoy the combination of the two. As Steve said, I'm doing this talk as the director of the Asthma and Allergy Foundation of America, the Michigan chapter. So these are just some of my affiliations. I have affiliations in the allopathic world as well as the complementary medicine or holistic world. And I really enjoy the combination of the two. As Steve said, I'm doing this talk as the director of the Asthma and Allergy Foundation of America, the Michigan chapter. But I also have a private practice as a homeopath. And so I'm used to dealing with people and their wellness issues. So I hope I can offer some insights for everybody. But we're here to talk about asthma. And I always want to preface my talks by saying this is for educational purposes only. And we're not giving advice on treatment or prescriptions or anything like that. But asthma, I'm sure you've noticed the impact that it's having in this country especially, and in most developed countries around the globe. It's consistently in the top 5 most costly health conditions in this country. And over 76 million people are affected by asthma and allergies. So that's in this country alone. That's quite a pool of potential customers, I'd say. And worldwide, almost 340 million people are affected by asthma. Again, that's quite a big group, unfortunately, but could do well for your business. The interesting thing about asthma is that a lot of its how well it does for a person really is affected by what's going on in their life outside of the doctor's office, so outside of prescriptions. So again, that's why it's a great potential for business. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that there are lots of health equity issues around the asthma in this country, where people of color and people of lower socioeconomic status are more adversely affected by asthma. And this includes morbidity, this includes hospitalization rates, this includes access to care. So again, more ways where we can help close this gap. Now, asthma is a chronic disease. Sometimes people like to think of it as being episodic, which means it comes and goes, and that's not the truth. The truth is it's a chronic disease of inflammation in the airway. The airway also gets very hypersensitive. So it's literally, you know, the branches in the lungs, they get very sensitive and they actually begin to twitch. So in addition to the inflammation, which is the biggest reason, you have these airways that are twitchy and hyper-responsive. So the biggest thing that allopaths try to do for asthma is reduce that inflammation. And if you've looked at any of the research going on with halotherapy, which I'll direct you to some in a minute, it's anti-inflammatory. So here we go, where we can really have a positive effect for folks. Now, allergies also go along with asthma quite often. Allergies are the most common chronic illness in this country. So this is when the body's immune system has a hyper response to some kind of trigger and it overreacts. And then the immune system starts overreacting and makes an antibody called IgE. So both asthma and allergies are an autoimmune disease, and some people don't make that connection. But there are over 100 types of autoimmune disease, and asthma and allergies fall in that group. So you can see that there's the potential for helping people's health is great, because if we can help them reverse this autoimmune disease cycle that's going on in this country, we're going to have healthier people. I also like to remind people that children are more adversely affected by the poor health issues that are going on in this country. You can see some of these statistics, and these are from 2014. So I don't think anything's gotten better since then, but you can see 1 in 10 children have asthma, 1 in 13 have food allergies. It's hard to get a statistic on regular allergies because they just don't monitor that. But more than half the children in this country have some kind of chronic disease. And believe it or not, it could be actually more than one. That's unheard of. That's been unheard of in the history of mankind. This is just a new part of the health puzzle going on in this country. And it's on the rise. And globally, 1 in 3 adults suffer from a multiple chronic condition. So again, what is going on with people's health to make chronic disease a normal thing? So most of this chronic disease starts with the immune system. And again, it's increasing in the developed world. And there are mostly environmental influences that affect the immune health. But one of the biggest things is inflammation. Inflammation is at the root of all chronic disease. And sometimes people just think of inflammation as, oh, my joint is swollen, or I have a bruise, but that's a piece of it. But more than that is an inflammatory response at a cellular level. And this is where it begins. So it's our job as wellness practitioners to try to assist people to move from this inflammatory response. And it could be a shift of alkaline versus acidic, and that's time for another talk. But it's also other modalities that we can use that will help reduce that inflammation or get rid of it. So how does inflammation affect the body? Every single system in the body is affected by inflammation. The brain. This inflammation in the brain can cause depression and autism and issues with memory and dementia. The thyroid. How many people do you know have some kind of Hashimoto's thyroid disease, or hyperthyroid or hypothyroid? It's crazy how many people are getting diagnosed with that. the kidneys, the cytokines increase in the kidneys and cause edema and hypertension. Every single system is affected by inflammation. So again, if we can remove or reduce this inflammation, people are going to be healthier for it. And we're reversing chronic disease, because remember, chronic disease begins with inflammation. Now, how does halotherapy affect? I like to call it the key, because it really unlocks the potential for good health. So halotherapy triggers anti-inflammatory status and anti-allergic responses in people with some kind of bronchial asthma or chronic bronchitis. But you can extrapolate that to other chronic diseases also, not just asthma or respiratory, because halotherapy is anti-inflammatory for the entire body. The mechanism of action includes mucolytic, which is kind of an anti-mucus effect, antibacterial, again, anti-inflammatory, modulates the immune system, and it hyposensitizes the body. So again, all those things we talked about, asthma and allergies, being a hyper response, salt therapy can reduce that. And most importantly, we should all have banners up across our offices. Lower the inflammation and you improve health and you improve the immune system. Now here are just a few places you can get some research, and Steve was nice enough to talk about Global Wellness Institute, and they have quite a bit of research on their halotherapy page. But if you go to Halotherapy Solutions website, I'm a little biased, but there it is. They have a nice collection of research articles. There's really a great one that was out just recently. This was 2016, halotherapy as asthma treatment in children specifically. And it did find that the children who had halotherapy as an adjunctive therapy improved their overall lung function. So that's a really important study, and it's pretty new. And then there was one done in 2009, halotherapy for treatment of respiratory disease. That one also was very positive. It's a shame that in this country, research isn't done unless there's big funders, and the funders usually are pharmaceutical companies. So it's hard to get good evidence-based studies here on any complementary or holistic therapy because of that reason. And so when people say, well, where's the research? Put the money up and we'll do it, right? So again, more ways to unlock halotherapy's benefits. Halotherapy is part of an integrative approach to better health. So no matter what chronic disease we're thinking of or talking about, by adding halotherapy and encouraging your customers to do that, it's only going to make their overall health much better. Especially for autoimmune disorders, we saw that especially asthma and allergies is part of an autoimmune disorder branch, and halotherapy can help reduce the inflammation that starts the autoimmune trail from happening. And interestingly, something that I don't see a lot of mention of is that using halotherapy can offset overspending on healthcare. So we can help people save their dollars, and we can help this country save some of their dollars. And there's just opportunity across the world. So how to promote halotherapy's benefits? Think of all those autoimmune conditions. Let me see if I can go back to that slide. Think of all these autoimmune conditions that you could be tapping into to advertise your business through, and to remind or do some articles reminding people the benefit. That's hundreds of things, that you can tap into. Promote your business seasonally. Think about what's happening with asthma and allergies. that's a good time to put your news articles out there or some flyers. For example, May is Asthma Awareness Month. So plan on doing something around asthma issues for your customers and to drive more customers in. Tapping into support groups is an important area that you could focus on, especially around the autoimmune diseases. Things like asthma and allergies and multiple sclerosis and lupus and IBD and Hashimoto's, multiple chemical sensitivities. I'm astounded at how many people are MCS driven, and all of that, remember, starts with inflammation. And if halotherapy reduces inflammation, it's going to reduce these sensitivities. But there's thousands and thousands of groups that you could be tapping into in social media to show them the benefit of halotherapy. Partner with dedicated organizations like mine or other organizations around these disease groups. There's unfortunately, every chronic disease has a month dedicated to it. Again, May is Asthma and Allergy Awareness Month, but there's a link that you can go to that lists out all the different chronic diseases. So it takes a little bit of organization, but put that in your calendar, and a month before that month, contact folks and try to advertise to their members, tell them you'll come and do a talk. There's all kinds of ways to tap into these groups that benefit from halotherapy. So right now is also another good time to be talking about asthma, because it is peak asthma time. This traditionally has happened in September, going back to school, and it's a perfect storm for a worsening case of asthma and allergies. The ragweed starts peaking at this time of year. The mold counts are up. We're spending a little bit more time indoors. And children are going back to school and being exposed to all kinds of respiratory germs like influenza. And I like to unfortunately call children viral vectors because they carry those viruses around to everybody else. And the same is true for what's going on right now, unfortunately, in the world with the COVID-19, that children may not be symptomatic, but they definitely can carry the virus to others. Interestingly to note, although people with asthma could get COVID-19 easier than other groups, the mortality rate and morbidity rate, meaning are they ending up in the hospital or dying, is less than other groups. So they're trying to figure out why that is. Some people are talking about the inhaled corticosteroids that a lot of people with asthma do take every day, and that might be protective somehow. So it'll be interesting to see what they come up with. But it's peak asthma time, so get the flyers out there. Try to contact a local newspaper or doing some Facebook advertising. I pulled these little things, and I'm sure this is nothing new to folks, but I pulled these out of Halotherapy Solutions Customer Success Playbook, which my understanding is every time you become a customer of Halotherapy Solutions, you get access to this excellent playbook for how to attract customers. So this just talks about a few things that you could do, the press release, like I mentioned, email marketing, doing an open house focused on whatever disease or illness happens to be in the news or trending at the time. So there's so much more in that customer playbook. I hope you can get access to it. It was phenomenal. Now, I really went through that pretty quickly, so we can have a discussion. Let me just look back at my notes for a second. I want to make sure I copied some things. Going back to how autoimmunity starts with inflammation, the number one reason inflammation starts is stress. So if we can offer people ways to reduce their stress, we're going to offer ways for them to reduce their inflammation. And going into these salt booths or using portable units is anti-stress, right? I know I'm hoping everybody's experienced that that's on the call today. So again, something so simple and yet can have such a profound impact.
Kathleen, we also have some questions when you're ready as well.
Okay, I'm done. I made sure I went through my written notes too.
Okay, so I'll defer to you and Steve on who should best answer these.
Okay.
But one question is, are a lot of your clients, I assume a lot of the clients who would be coming to a spa or wellness center for halotherapy, have issues with asthma? Is that a big part of the business, a small part of the business? I'll give you my opinion. I have a halotherapy cabin as well as a halotherapy infrared sauna, the Halo IR. And I wouldn't say it was a lot for me. But it was probably 25%. I also noticed that some of the folks felt better coming regularly all the time because it doesn't cure it, but it did seem to dampen down the attacks. And other people kind of could tell in advance that they were going to have an issue. They kind of had a precursor. I don't know what it was, but there was something that was signaling to them in their body that things were about to get worse. And then they would come in like 3 or 4 days in a row. And then it would kind of, again, just kind of dampen that reaction. So, that's my experience with as a halotherapy service provider. So how do you feel about that, Kathleen?
I'll defer to Steve because I don't have a spa.
All right. So I lost him. I'm not sure if he's still there. Steve, or can you unmute? No, you're still muted, Steve. I can see the red gizmo on your.
I do know that's what I've heard anecdotally from the spa owners that I have talked with, is that asthma is a good chunk of the business.
Yeah, I also think yeah. And I'll just continue to answer while Steve is working on his issue. So a couple of things. I'm in New England, so we have a very seasonal allergy world, right? So for 3, 4, 5 months we're in snow, we have less issues. So if you were in a spot that had less seasonal allergy issues, you might get people all throughout the year for the allergies. For asthma, I also have people with allergies and with people with COPD. So if I put together all of the people with respiratory challenges, it might be 30, 40+% of the business, as opposed to just asthma. And then we had the stress relief, we had the snoring, we had all the other kind of, individual reasons why people, we're using it. Steve, can you hear us? Can you talk now?
Yeah, go ahead. And so, sorry, repeat the question to me one more time. I can hear you now. I can hear you. So I'm going to end, and we just got another question. So I'm going to end. It's good for you as well. So number one, what percentage of a halotherapy business would be expected to be asthma clients, or, small, medium, large percentage? I talked about what I normally see, which was probably about a quarter of my business was asthma. And if I threw in allergies and COPD, it'd get even bigger. And then another question is, we have an infrared sauna combined with halotherapy. Does infrared sauna have any impact on asthma? Positive, negative, because I have both. We have a combined unit. So is that something that would impact asthma or not necessarily? Okay, so on the first question, from most of the salt therapy owners I've talked to, respiratory probably makes up about 60 to 65% of their business. Skin conditions, another 10 to 15%. And the other 15% is a combination of stress relief, boosting immunity, and even fitness enhancement, through increased lung stamina and endurance through the VO2 max. So I would say that. So with the infrared, it's also, detoxifying and inflammation reducing. So yeah, so it's definitely very helpful. And even the halotherapy itself is better, because as the infrared begins to heat up the room and the halotherapy is on, it expands the lungs size. So the halotherapy, the salt particles are able to cover a much larger surface. So heated halotherapy is better than regular halotherapy, and the infrared combination is just the maximum way to get to help with asthma or other respiratory things as well.
Okay, so another question, and this may be, I know that Lisa Semmerly, who works with us, is an expert on this, but there's a question from Judy in Florida. Haven't had a lot of luck partnering with doctors to embrace halotherapy, or I don't know if she's tried other medical providers such as homeopathy and et cetera. She uses the word doctor. And we own a unit and are located in Florida. So I know that Lisa in Michigan, who has formerly worked with physicians in pharmaceutical world, has had a lot of luck partnering with wellness professionals. So let me stop there and see if either Kathleen or Steve has any comments about, better ways to partner with medical professionals. So let's call them wellness professionals. They don't, in my opinion, don't necessarily have to be doctors.
Right. So that's a great question. And we've had a lot of success with some of our friends in Australia that have been able to penetrate the, call it, medical doctor community. But it's kind of like what Kathleen said before about pharmaceutical companies not really wanting to invest in research for halotherapy. There aren't a lot of medical doctors who prefer to give, prescription drugs or do surgeries to embrace most holistic modalities, including halotherapy. What we have found is, again, it takes a lot of work, but if there's 100 medical doctors in your area, try to find ones that are more liberal, either through just contacting them, or maybe even better, trying to access them through connections or networks that you have, or friends of friends. You just need to find a couple of liberal and open-minded doctors in terms of the medical doctors. But we've seen a much, much higher rate of helpfulness, if you will, with, chiropractors, for example. So I think there's some holistic doctors that you can work with much easier. But don't give up on the medical doctors. They might be respiratory therapists. They may not be full-fledged medical doctors, but they might be pulmonologists. You just have to keep digging and driving and grinding. So
yeah, that was my experience. I mean, one of the things that I did was I gave away free halotherapy 3 sessions to all the doctors, nurses, anybody I could find in the wellness space within like 100 miles or 50 miles, probably less than 50 miles. Because a lot of them just don't understand what it is, and they haven't tried it, and they don't really want to recommend something that they're not familiar with. So that's one thing to do. Also, I had a lot of luck with children in my halotherapy, primarily around there's a predilection apparently to put tubes in the ears of the kids who get a lot of ear infections. And there's also apparently some doctors will prescribe steroids for that. And a lot of parents came to me and said, well, can we try this? I'd rather do this than that, at least to try. And I said, well, try it. If it gets better, great. If it doesn't, then do what the doctor's telling you to do. But we would never recommend ignoring the doctor, but potentially you can partner with the doctor to reduce the symptoms or reduce the duration between the ear infections, right, by using halotherapy. And once the doctor knows you're there really to partner, and you're not really trying to take business away, or you're not really making claims that are wrong, then I think you're more likely to partner. So we're just about out of time, but I have one more.
Let me jump in real quick too and mention that, like Steve said, there are holistic kinds of physicians and doctors, like the naturopaths, like the functional medicine docs. Those are the ones that will get it and probably will help you tap into their patient population to help.
Yeah. And the concierge medicine too, because they're being paid differently. They're being paid to keep you healthy and not paid by the visit. So it's in their best interest to keep you out of the doctor. And I had some luck with them. It's a growing business, so there's not a ton of them, but it may be in your area. And then the last question I have from one of our friends in the UK, Any thoughts on sports-induced asthma and halotherapy?
Oh, absolutely. It would help because that's all about inflammation that comes on exercise. And actually, the director of the World Halotherapy Association did a study recently on athletes and halotherapy, and it definitely affected and improved their lung function so that they were able to do their sports at a much higher capacity. So absolutely.
Yeah, I just want to add that if anybody has any additional questions, feel free to email me directly at info@halotherapysolutions.com. We will answer all questions. And again, the next Fireside Chat, we're aiming for September 30th, and it's going to be on touchless services. There's a whole range of new modalities that are coming out because of COVID that we're going to cover. We're going to have some experts in the field talk about touchless services. So halotherapy is one of those, but there's 3 or 4 other ones that we're going to mention or talk about in detail as well. So I really appreciate your time. As Terry said, there's going to be a recording of this. I think the information that Kathleen presented was phenomenal. Every time I hear her speak, I learn something else. So please feel to share this video once we post it, and keep on watching it. And again, thank you. And I really want to shout out to the Global Wellness Institute, who has really been supportive of everything halotherapy. So check out their website at globalwellnessinstitute.org. So thank you, everybody. Stay healthy, stay safe, and go halotherapy.